You're going live.
All set? Good evening. Sorry for the lateness. We were sorting through our many documents. We're very comprehensive and much awaited presentation from Ryan Walker. So we'll look forward to that. That presentation will be about outlining the very complex and, dare I say, labyrinth-like disciplinary processes of the city of Cleveland. And we're doing this project in order to make it easier for the citizens of Cleveland to understand how they can participate in civilian oversight. So good evening again. My name is Terry Wong. I'm the chair of the Police Accountability, Police Investigations, Discipline, and Accountability Committee of the Cleveland Community Police Commission. We welcome you online. Thank you for waiting. I know that we had some documenters waiting, so we apologize for the delay. And thank you for our audience here. I'm going to do a roll call. Chandra Benito is absent, but from a technical absence, I guess. Mr. Chura?
Here.
And I'm here, so we do have quorum. We are missing 2 members because we had, just to get everybody updated, we had a co-chair election and 2 of our committee members became our new leadership. So congratulations to them. But so we will continue operating with Mr. Chura and I so that the work of the Accountability Committee can continue. I'm asking for an agenda review. Is there any place that you see, Mr. Walker, where you ideally would like to give your presentation so we can complete the agenda?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And I don't know if there is any public comment. We can allow for public comment, or we can allow for public comment afterwards. I'm fine with that. Afterwards. I'm actually also, if there's any public comment between the items, I am open to that too.
You don't want to make a comment?
No, because we won't see the presentation.
Oh.
Do you want? Well, there'll be public comment at the end or whatever. I can add it between items if you want.
It's up to you. You're the boss.
Okay. So I will just check in. All right, every time. Okay, thank you so much. So let's just get started. We're actually still on schedule a little bit. We want to give a work group report and discussion. We will begin with the gender-based violence work group, which has right now Chandra Benito, Alana Garrett-Ferguson, and Sharina Zayed. I don't believe that committee has activated yet. I will touch base with those 3 members, and we do believe that, a member, if they're still interested, if they're not a commissioner that's not a member of the committee, can still act on those work groups. I will check in with them. I don't know if you have any.
It's they had agreed to move that to the second half of 2024 before it meets. So
okay,
that was something the work group discussed and was I think it was put into the framework that will be in the second half of 2024.
Okay, I will recommend because we've had a long saga with the records. If they, I'm going to suggest to them that they, if they want, that they can begin the records request right now. All right, great. And then we're going to move on to the Brady Giglio work group. We have Mr. Chura and I on that work group. We also have Linda Harico, who is a Brady Giglio work group member. I don't know if she would like to give an update or if you want me to. Okay, thank you. So briefly, we are meeting this Thursday at 4. One of our members had some vacation, so we're back on schedule. We are imminently about to finalize, I think, our rubric, and we hope we've gone through the 2022 disciplinary notices and have started categorizing those discipline notices and those officers. We hope, what do you think, Mr. Chura? What do you hope? We hope in the next few months that we will have an initial list prepared, but we want to, go ahead in an expedient but also careful fashion because we understand the impact to a police officer when they are put on this potential list. And I want to emphasize again, as I did in the last meeting, this list is not an assessment of the behavior. What we have decided is that the list will provide the in the end, it's the judge that decides whether it is Brady or Giglio material, depending on the circumstances, depending on the case. So we're just making this more like a public records kind of offering to the public, such that the defense would have the information on the officers to do their job. Is there any other things for that? We have a data, and there's some, and we're looking, just so the public knows, we are, the reason why we're proceeding in a more methodical fashion is that we understand that this is not just something we need this for this moment, but a database that we want to create for the future. And since that group is basically, hopefully, eventually we'll be able to look through the full disciplinary files of officers, we think this is a good opportunity to glean some more information about the disciplinary system. And we need to develop specific metrics and specific criteria and categorization for such that someone in the future can maintain this database. Did Mr. Walker want to have any comments?
Yeah, that's the sort of idea. This is the whole idea of this project is something that can be sort of, a basis for people in the future, even if we're not here. Whatever successors we have will be able to use this and hopefully build up on it. Yeah.
And I would say this is, as far as we know, one of the first, or if only, Brady Giglio list of its kind. I think it will be, and in the end, I think the spirit is that the information on officer discipline is a matter of public interest, and we are just proceeding with that kind of spirit.
Yeah, it's sort of a lot of cities don't release their Brady Giglio lists. In fact, they're quite. It's often quite hard to learn which officers are on it, which officers are not on it. Some cities like Honolulu sort of just puts this is the officers who are on the Brady Giglio list, and they have no explanation why they put them on the Brady Giglio list. So this is sort of a much more comprehensive, I think, project.
Right, and I'm sorry, I must, please forgive me if you're tuning in for the first time, a Brady Giglio list, as we're calling it. If officers have material that has to be, given to the defense under Brady Giglio, which are 2 Supreme Court rulings, those are cases that comment on the credibility of an officer to serve as a witness. There's different criteria. So this is basically information that must be given to the defense in order to properly defend a defendant in this case. And there have, unfortunately, when Brady Giglio material has not been given, people's lives have been irrevocably changed. They've ended up in jail for many decades, and it's very hard to overturn. So this is a more downstream kind of accountability for the police division of police, but we think is really essential because I don't know if the rest of the committee feels this way and the work group feels this way. If we can impact one person's life, and that would be a great accomplishment for this work group. Thank you. So the discipline work group is next. We are currently almost done with the manual of rules. I think in the next 2 weeks, the manual of the rules are basically the Bible or the Constitution, the foundational rules of the police. And we are going through it line by line. We have a very good work group that is working pretty fast through that, except for the parts that we notice that certain sections that comment on certain types of behavior are a little bit more difficult to edit, and we want to maintain a certain sense of consistency and fairness. I don't know if you have any comments, Mr. Chura and Ryan, as to how that project is going, what you've noticed, and what is it. Mr. Chura, could you explain what the manual of rules is and why do you think, we're updating it right now, the division?
The manual rules is what all officers have to obey. Also, some of the civilian employees will be under the manual rules and regulations also, such as dispatchers. Used to be IGs when we had those, telephone operators, etc. After that would come the general police orders, and then the departmental notices, and then finally memos. That's the hierarchy of the orders of the police division, the division of police with Cleveland.
So could you explain how important, how does this affect officers' lives and the discipline system from your perspective and experience as the former IA commander?
Well, I think in the past, sometimes the the language never changed for probably 20 or 30 years with the manual of rules and regulations. So it's important to update them because there used to be conflicts between the manual of rules and regulations and the general police orders. So there was always a kind of a little catch-all for officers to, not be held accountable at times, or at least cast some doubt. So,
We have, sometimes rules and laws don't catch up with reality very much, but we hope to, I want to assure that we understand that, what I noticed from the rules is that when rules are made for a particular situation, they sometimes may have a collateral effect on other situations. So we're trying to, as dispassionate people that are looking at the rules not as officers, try to make it fair and balanced for other people. It's not like an indictment of motives here, but sometimes when something happens, you're like, oh my gosh, we didn't think about that. But when you design a rule from a particular situation, it has its benefits, but it has its costs too. So we want to maintain consistency in that system. All right, so and then the next step will be looking at the discipline matrix, which is very important, has not been updated for a while. And any other comments on that? So that work group basically meets every Thursday at 6:30. We have a new member that's a firefighter. We're very happy to have him. So it just shows the full diversity of that work group. And we're just sitting there spitballing, these lines and seeing from all our different life experiences how we can make these rules a little more consistent and fair. So we welcome anybody to that committee. And Brady Giglio meets usually on Thursday or Wednesdays at 4. So I know that's a little bit difficult for people to attend, but we are happy if you want to contact me or Mr. Goodrick to provide you a link so that you can at least attend that way. All right, good. Now we are officially ahead of schedule. So we're going to go to old business. I'm going to give an update on the NACOL trainer. I know that Commissioner Benito had reached out to NACOL. I didn't get the entire email string. I don't know if Mr. Goodrick has any comments on that.
No, other than the fact that they acknowledge that it is possible for us to use them as some type of trainer in relation to investigations and conducting investigations and standards for that, et cetera, et cetera. So the next steps would be, if we decided something what we want to do, we have to cost it out first. And then depending on what the price point is, then we'll know if we have to put it to bid or not and allow other competitors to bid along with NACOL. So we wouldn't be able to, unless we decided that NACOL has unique and perspective that only they can offer, we can possibly pursue a sole source vendor request for them. So we can move it forward. It's just a matter of first pricing it and then deciding with which method is appropriate.
Do we have money in the budget? Do we need to allocate
Yes.
it? Okay,
So
great.
we have money in our training budget, a good deal, and we also have outside professional consultant money that is unallocated for this year.
Right, and I would propose we give a broader perspective and maybe, a Cleveland perspective.
Yes.
I did want to note that Akron did hire as its police auditor, a member of NACOL that has Anthony
Well,
Fennell.
hold on. I've spoken to Anthony, and he said he has not been offered a position,
Okay.
and it is an inaccuracy in the media. So
Okay.
that is not the case. He is a candidate,
Mhm.
but he told me personally that he has not been officially offered the position yet, so that the media
Okay.
reports were inaccurate.
So if Mr. Fennell is offered a position, I mean, he has, if we look at his, just that we know, so the NACOL stands for the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. And there are just every variety of person that would be working in this ecosystem. But just to give you an idea that there are people out there. And I do want to say, this is my personal opinion, I don't know if Mr. Chura shares it. We have a precedent for what we're doing here, is that every day common citizens and lay people end up in court having to make decisions similar to us. And they just come with their common sense, their attention to the facts and details, and with a little bit of instruction, I think sometimes in law, they can make these decisions. So I don't want us to be deterred from using our innate abilities to make these common sense decisions. Could you also explain to me what type of training did CPRB members, the Civilian Police Review Board, how were they trained?
To my knowledge, CPRB has not had any formal training. So in their manual, in their old iteration of the manual, the one that presently existed and court approved, they outlined training for themselves, which to my knowledge never occurred. So you guys are unique in comparison to them, that we did an onboarding that had between 40 and 60 hours of required training for CPRB. To my knowledge, they have not met their training commitment even to what is outlined in their manual. Now that may not be true on an individual level. Some CPRB members may have sought out training on their own. As you know, Ms. Miller accompanied us to NACOL, which was great. She was the only CPRB representative there at the time. So some individuals may have sought out individual training for themselves, but to my knowledge, they have not met their own training standard mandates in their operating manual.
Thank you so much. All right, any comments? Mr. I don't know, do you have any perspective as the IA commander, former IA commander on, I'm sure you have a lot to say about the investigations and training. I mean, was there any learnings that you had that from all that time of what could, things that we should watch out for? What do you think makes a good, not to put you on the spot, Mr. Tur, but what do you think makes a good investigation? What are the ways that globally it could go awry?
Just looking at everything in a logical manner, getting all your ducks in a row. And wherever the investigation is going to go, it's going to go based on the facts that you uncover and not by public opinion or anything like that. When I was there, we presented the facts to the prosecutor, and we would go from there. We had no interference from the chief at the time or anything like that. I think that's kind of changed the last couple of chiefs. So
I hear you is, as much as possible, we are human beings, to be as dispassionate as possible, to focus on the facts, logic, and also to maintain independence from any sort of outside influence. We understand that we are the community-facing commission, but and when a high-profile event happens, we understand that there's a lot of sentiment and emotions attached to that. But how I see us rising, to the occasion is to make sure that we focus on the facts and the discipline matrix. And I think that if we focus on those things, we'll be very successful in our ability to provide that type of appeal and oversight.
absolutely. I mean, if we give the officers their due process and whatever we uncover, if they did everything right, then if there's nothing we could do, I mean, that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
We're not going to have like mob rule or anything like that.
Right. And we understand, and this is, I do just want to comment on this. The reason for this is that we are, as a body, I believe, are here to fix not just every single issue, but to fix those issues with individual officers is a way to fix the systemic issues, which is not an imagined situation. It is openly stated in the consent decree that there are systemic operational issues with the Division of Police. So that is something we can't deal with that if we just look at things, respond to things as in isolation. So I just want to give that broader view. So that lends we have two pending appeals. Could you, we can talk about the new appeal, but that is confirmed, right? We have two pending appeals to us. That is under 115.5 that community members, regardless of where they are in the disciplinary process, can appeal to us. And we are able to take cases regardless at any point in the decision process. So is there an update on the creation? What we're missing right now is the creation of an evidentiary process for our hearings. We are very blessed to have Mr. Martin Bilat, am I pronouncing it correct? I believe, as our lawyer, and Mr. Goodrich can give an update on the procedures that he's writing for us.
So Martin is working on drafting the hearing procedures, which will come before. I think it'll go to rules, because rules is where it was housed, but it'll also come through accountability. It'll be a joint draft work on that. And we should have those probably I would anticipate by maybe next week, come before the commission. So he's already, started something. I've shared some notes and feedback with him, and once we get it polished enough to send it forward, it'll be soon.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you so much. And if possible, if we have many lawyers that are volunteering their time. If we can send out the drafts to them, I know.
well,
Too
that's
many-
up to the commission. So once
Right.
it's given to you guys, you can get feedback from whoever you want, the entire community or whatever, right? But for the time being, right now, it's just until Martin, at this level, the staff level, has it polished.
Mhm.
Once we do that, we'll send it to you, and then this commission has the right to receive feedback from anyone they wish in that cycle. So we will get that to you as our official staff polished draft, and then you can release it publicly if you wish for comment, or select work groups or whatever you feel appropriate.
Do you think, because, there will be a point that even there are too many lawyers in the kitchen, I've noticed that sometimes in one work group, do we want the committee, the accountability committee to assess it first before we get a deluge of feedback?
Well, that's something you'll have to decide. Remember, this too is so important that I have no doubt it's going to have to go to DOJ. The question is whether we ask for their feedback before we adopt it or after we adopt it and then ask them for their feedback. So that's another question that has to be considered is this does have impact on the consent decree and the overall disciplinary process. It is under the purview of Judge Oliver because it has to do with police discipline and it does have to do with the consent decree. So the question is, when do we give it to DOJ too? So do we make a choice to send it out to that group of attorneys for assessment and experts? The monitor also will probably want to chime in on it as well. So we have a couple of different places it still needs to go to feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that, ties very well with the trainers. I mean, I think there might be some confusion about what the evidentiary process is. How is it distinct from the initial assessment that is made? And this committee will lead that evidentiary, like developing the evidentiary kind of dossier, if anything, for the rest of the commission. But could you distinguish maybe between the initial process? We have these two appeals. We are not making an assessment. We're not. It's almost like and Linda, please correct me. I made the analogy before that we were like an appeals court, but we're also like an appeals court and the lower court at the same time. Is that we act first as the appeals court in determining if the case can come to us and if it's followed the right procedure. But then we also, if we decide to proceed with it, we are doing a full kind of evidentiary assessment and adjudication of that case.
So to the chair, as it sits right now, due process for it to come to us is the first step, right? So it would have to have gone through some form of initial disciplinary hearing, whether it be at the chief's level or the safety director's level. Those are the two places, right? Then if it was a CPRB originating case, CPRB has an opportunity to use their powers under 115.5 to overturn either the safety director or the chief. If they choose not to do it, that puts the case possibly in our window. If someone were to, according to our rules, bring the case to our attention and ask us or petition us to open a case file on it and take it under consideration for a hearing. So that's kind of how due process looks to get to us, right? Now, where it can get complicated is, to your point of bringing in attorneys and things, right? What is the definition of an evidentiary hearing and what does that mean, right? So right now we're going with, our take on it is, we already have a model and that's the CPRB model, right? They're already adjudicating cases. And the way that works is they don't follow courtroom procedures, right? You don't have to file motions with CPRB. You don't have to go overly complicated, which is the most extreme version of what an evidentiary hearing would be, right? Where you have subpoenas, you have motions, you could quash motions, all that stuff. We're leaning towards the more fast, efficient way, similar to CPRB as our proposal, where evidence is presented, right? And in our instance, what does evidence mean? It means evidence that says this discipline is or is not in line with what the disciplinary policy says for that time of offense, right? So we're not looking at evidence of the case holistically. in the same way CPRB is. Ours is a much more streamlined process. We are making a case, and staff will be kind of like, if you were looking at a courtroom, right? Staff would be presenting its findings to you about this case relative to, did it follow due process? Does it comport with the manual of rules? Was there any thing that made it unique in the way it was adjudicated? Was there any, how were aggravating and mitigating factors at play? Because that's where you're going to see the most disciplinary discretion, right? Is the way they use aggravating and mitigating factors. So we'll have to look at that and make an argument, factual argument of why the aggravating and mitigating factors or whatever reasoning they used to apply discipline was incorrect in this instance, right? So this is presenting evidence for why this discipline was not correct in the way it was applied, right? Not why, because at this point, the officer had already most likely been found to have been evidentially proven that they did this thing, right? But what we're looking at is, did the outcome comport with the way it was supposed to? So the evidence that's presented to you will be based on that argument, that this officer should have had more discipline, right? If you're doing a hearing, it's for the more, right? Very rarely the less. But those are very rare circumstances that we can do that. So more than likely, most of our hearings will be a presentation of evidence that this discipline should have been more than what was applied at the chief or the safety director or the CPRB level.
Right.
So that's the best way I can describe it off the top of my head right now.
Right. So there, I mean, it is a very, hopefully, not so frequent circumstance. We do have the power to decrease discipline in one regard. It is for retaliation. So I do want to convey that, and we have a process for anonymous taking in basically not anonymous, but like that only Mr. Goodrick and I would be in the room for complaints with if officers want to bring that to us. So that's the only
And
way.
if I may take a moment, Chair, I know you attended the CPRB meeting today. I would like to raise my concerns with you on the record about how that hearing went, because the reason that I'm concerned about it is there seems to be legal counsel from the city that is telling them that their manual supersedes the city of Cleveland ordinance that says they can overturn the safety director's decisions on discipline, right? So today they were presented with a possibility for the very first time of exercising their power under 115.5 to overturn the safety director's disciplinary decision, which did not align with what they initially recommended, right? So if we're following this, what that means is the law says they can use a power, and they were advised today by their attorneys that their manual says they can't use that power, so they can't use their power under the law. It makes zero sense, because if you put that into perspective, it means that you can write anything you want in your manual, and because you wrote it in your manual, you completely disregard the charter. So let me give you a for instance. I could write our manual to make you the mayor, and we adopt that as our rule, right? And according to their legal advice today, what they said was that manual would supersede the charter, which makes zero operational sense. So my concern is that if CPRB does not exercise their powers, right, we will have an extra heavy workload, because we will continue to receive cases for them that were designed under the system to finish at their line. So I think this committee should consider and raise this issue with the commission, writing a letter to CPRB and doing everything we can to persuade them that they should be using their power under 115.5, because what that means for us is an extra heavy caseload.
154.
154. Well, for them, 115.4, for us, 115.5. So yes, correction. But I think, Commissioner, you read them that ordinance, and still they made a decision today that they did not believe they had the power to use that ordinance, which their legal advice was coming directly from the law director's staff.
So I will get to that because I want to talk about according to the new appeal. So let's get back to that point. So thank you for that. I want to now. So what is the deadline for the evidentiary hearing? What does the timeline look like for Martin to give us a draft? Give us a brief outline of the timeline.
So I'm hoping that you'll have that, barring any major disagreements where Martin and I are on it. you should have it within a week, I would think, so.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I want to now give an update on the records request. We can start maybe with the disciplinary file for the case for our first, and forgive me, is it is that her first name? Ms. Johnson's first name? What is the update for her case file? That was our first appeal that we received.
So I just got a notice today that that CPRB's attorney is saying that they still have not received a confirmation from one of our other co-chairs, but that is incorrect. She did send that, so I have to send that forward, and then it should unlock this. But it has been unnecessarily delayed by adding a step in the process, which co-chair approval from us was not required to get these things. So they added a barrier there that was unnecessary that delayed this, unfortunately.
Okay,
So-
and then we have a second request that's still pending with multiple requests. We asked initially for the departures from the chief for 2 years. This is, and the new case that we have is a departure. We've not received that record. You've heard me talk about it many times. We also, the Brady Giglio Group has asked for the comprehensive disciplinary file. What Mr. Chura has said is the hearing officer's file for officers disciplined from 2022 to 2023. We believe because we need a more holistic attention to the full disciplinary file to understand what these mitigating, aggravating circumstances are, how these disciplinary decisions are made. We need those files. I'm troubled that they seem to be able to get these files together in time for the hearing. But according to Chief Drummond's recent memo to us, that the argument now is, after many months of not getting proper objections, that it will take 6 months to give us these files because of potential law enforcement data that's contained in these files. I will just give a brief update that it is a noteworthy issue on the front burner of the DOJ and the monitor. And I hope to, by the commission's full meeting, give an update. However, we're fighting this fight not just for these cases and these projects. This is to establish a set of expectations for the sharing of data that is essential to the commission's work, not just for hearings, but for our broader accountability and policy and outreach and all those in training work. Okay. So that is all I will say about that. I want to get an update on the IG. I think that one project that we had housed under accountability is that under both the consent decree and the charter, the commission has the authority to interview and recommend candidates for the inspector general position. And if you want to broaden that conversation, Mr. Goodrick, under the charter, I'm not sure if under the consent decree, under the charter, we also have the additional responsibility and privilege and authority to interview and recommend candidates for police commander. And if you want to give us a brief update about the press release that was sent this week, but also I would like to know how we are integrated right now into the IG process. What I envision is that we simply start getting notices about their hiring processes for these positions.
So to the chair, the update on the IG position is that, and I think I forwarded the documents. If I didn't, forgive me, because we pulled them. So they have amended the consent decree. So they are going to put the IG under Director Howard, but they are going to limit the scope of the IG's work to only police per the consent decree. So the IG has changed. And they amended the consent decree. So the only thing that changed in the consent decree is that the IG previously reported to the chief of police. Now the IG will report to Director Carrie Howard. So now that that's been done, I check the website daily. That position has not been posted. The city conceded in the last time they posted this position that we were a part of that process already. They approached us. They asked us to get in the interviews. Did they do it at the 11th hour? Absolutely, right? So at this point, I would recommend that if accountability is the agreed upon committee that is going to lead this, that the accountability chair request through the executive director's office a status update and a timeline for them to hire this. And along with that request, we could say we would like to be at the table at the start of the interview planning process, not at the end with final candidates, which means receiving applications, reviewing applications, et cetera, right? So it's a matter of negotiating what our role is this time before it starts. But it has not been posted yet. I have not seen that position posted.
I have a question. I remember that in addition to changing housing the role under public safety rather than the chief of police, there were differences, expansions of the departments that the inspector general would be responsible for, and maybe some, pay grade issues. And there were some responsibilities that were contained in the consent decree that were removed from that job description. Do we have any updates on that, or was that not part of the amendment?
I do not know. As far as I know, and I haven't read it, is that it only changed the reporting structure, did not change the responsibilities. But I have the documents, so I will make sure that you're forwarded them and you can.
I have it, but it was just vague on that. So thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think we should do since we have already this project with the IG? How do you think the commission's role with it? If you want to give an update about the police commander appointments?
Yeah, so I could, on yesterday, February 12th, the commission sent out a press release and email blast to our over 700 subscribers with our concern that the mayor, Justin Bibb, Director of Public Safety, Kerry Howard, and Chief of Police, Wayne Drummond, have disregarded Charter Section 115.5 because they recently appointed two police commanders, Kevin Kincaid for the Bureau of Special Services and Ralph Valentino for the 4th District, and that's under the duties and authorities of the commission. Charter 115.5 clearly states that the CPC must include in the interviewing and recommendation of candidates for police commander and inspector general to the mayor. So we were not approached. We were not aware that these positions were being vetted. We don't know what the process is for how they select commanders. So it was a completely closed door process despite the charter. So we have called to attention, and what the commission asked for is that the mayor's administration rectify this breach of trust by rescinding the appointments in question and restating the prescribed role of the commission in the selection process. So that is our stance at this moment. They have not acknowledged receipt. And we had also asked the director of law whether they believe, Mark Griffin believes that this is in conflict with the charter, and we have not received a response from Mr. Griffin's office. And the reason we asked that question is because our own attorney can't assess our legal options, Martin Belot, until we know the role of Mr. Griffin in this process. If Mr. Griffin advised or was involved in this selection at all, it creates a conflict with law. So in that instance, we would have to use Mr. Wallach as our attorney or another attorney of record to fight this if they don't agree to do rescind, and we have to take them to court over this. The 4th District is very important, as people know. The 4th District, our vision for how this would have worked would have been we engage in interviews in the 4th District where the commander would be appointed and let the community be a part of that interview process, right? And although we can only make recommendations, it's very important for transparency. The other thing that needs to be known is just today, I forwarded a DN that came out that says they have moved critical incident response, right? So the CIT officers under the Bureau of Special Services. So now we have a new commander of the Bureau of Special Services in charge of a very important thing, which is CIT, and the community did not vet that commander ahead of time. So this is a complex issue. We don't know when this process started, why they did what they did, but we do know that the charter says what it says, and we were not involved in that process at all.
Right. So, and it's unfortunate that under the charter, we don't have any appointment authority, but what we can ask, and I would maybe strongly I'm open to other suggestions, that we shouldn't just re-interview the finalists. We should re-interview every single applicant. We should think about establishing a process, because this is going forward. There's going to be promotions, a process within the commission on how we conduct these interviews, what documents we need, because they're police commanders. I'm assuming there are other documents in addition to their application that would be relevant.
So it's even more complex than that, because I was asked the question, is this a violation of the consent decree? So paragraph 317 of the consent decree deals with promotions. As far as we know, 317 and 318. So let me pull that up here, because I was just working on this earlier today. So I have it fresh in my browser here somewhere. 317 and 318 in the consent decree, right? 317 states that the city will develop and implement fair and consistent promotion practices that comport with the requirements of this agreement and result in the promotion of officers who are effective and professional. And when they amended the consent decree in 2022, previously, before 115.5, the beginning of that said that the CDP will do these things, right? You have to understand, when the consent decree was amended, anywhere that said CDP that now had CPC as the authority, what they changed the wording to was the city, right? So we are absolutely involved in the consent decree in paragraph 317, because when they amended it, they changed the language to say the city, recognizing that the CPC encompasses that jointly with all the other stakeholders. So we are explicitly part of 17. In 318, it describes the factors for how you evaluate officers who are to be promoted. And we don't know if they use this process at all, or if they apply these factors at all when selecting these commanders. So there is no process or procedure in writing. There is no GPO. There is no job description of a commander. There is no standard that we're aware of. So co-chairs have asked me to do a follow-up request, and we want to know everyone who applied, what process they used, what evaluations, what rubrics, anything associated with this particular process, to help us verify how much in violation of the consent decree they are.
So I do want to just read paragraph 318, which is the next paragraph, to give the community an idea about the type of criteria used for promotion. So effective use of community and problem-oriented policing strategies, the number and circumstances of uses of force, an officer's service as an FTO field training officer or field training sergeant, their disciplinary record, problem-solving skills, interpersonal skills, support for departmental integrity measures, and pending disciplinary process. So I think we can see from this that the evaluation process that we should do for interviews, it's broader than maybe the one for the inspector general. So I would really advocate for us to develop that interview process. If it's okay, I can make it that, I don't know if it needs to be a motion, we can expand that existing project with the IG through accountability. I don't know if I want to give Mr. Chura the floor. I don't want to put him on notice again. You must have had a lot of experience with promotion, and how integral is that to the morale and the operational ability of the police, a fair and equitable promotion process?
Fair and equitable, huh?
It's an oxymoron. Like military intelligence.
To go through the process, usually they'll put a departmental notice out saying there's a command position. Used to be just broad like that. Now they've got, I think, a little bit more specific, what it might be, a district command or a different command, radio or whatever. If you're interested, you would you type a Form 1 with basically a resume, your work experience, your education, things of that nature, why you wanna be a commander. From there, they would usually review the resumes and the Form 1, and they would have a panel. It's usually made up of a deputy chief and commanders, and they would interview all the candidates, ask them various questions, whatever might be relevant at the time with policing, latest issues. So I'm not sure if they're still doing that or not, but definitely an interview. And if they have an interview process, perhaps we could piggyback with them with a couple commissioners when they're doing their interview. And if we had any questions, we could submit them. From there, it usually you'd have an interview with the chief of police. And then you would eventually, the final candidates that were selected by the chief would usually go to the mayor and you would go be interviewed by the mayor at City Hall, and you just wait and see who they selected. And that was pretty much the end of the process.
Thank you. And I want to say, we're not trying to upend the system or anything, but we need to be integrated into all the processes of the city. It's been, we've been a year in the existence, and the first step, I think, is to be notified that these things are happening. We should not be having Mr. Goodrick find out on social media that this is happening. This to no fault of his. Is that how else are we going to find out this information? All right, well, thank you. I want to move on briefly to the exit interviews. It was a public record request for the exit interviews for, I believe, the last 3 years that we have, that for every officer that has departed from the division in various forms. Historically, have these interviews been conducted? How has an officer that has left the division been assessed?
If you retire, you just retire. I've never really seen an exit interview for someone retiring getting a full pension. With guys leaving now with the low morale, low pay, well, pay's better now, but I'm not sure if there's any formal process with the personnel unit. If there is, then you could see what they have, what information they have. Speaking with the union reps for the CPPA, a lot of it was at the time was low wages, so a lot of them were leaving because of that. And the second main reason that the president told me, President Fulmer, he said it was discipline, excessive discipline, and unfair discipline at times. Is how they felt.
And I think we did get some an exit interview stack from Commander Carney, so we thank him for that. He did do that within 21 days as designated by the judge. So I'm very happy that they're attempting to do some type of exit interview analysis. However, it was hard for me, maybe because Commander Carney didn't give me the raw data. It was about a dozen questions, and it was hard to tell which officer was answering, giving which comment. If it's the same officer, there was, there was a constant comment about issue 24, but I didn't know if that was one officer. So it's hard to evaluate the proportion of officers that's saying something. I will ask, perhaps, I think, if we can, do we have authority to provide recommendations on those exit interviews? It's such valuable information. And what can we do? I have an idea of a project, a bridging outreach, but I just want you to answer first.
So are you referring to crafting a new version of the exit interview?
If that's possible, I have another idea if that is not possible, but
If that's
but
subjective,
based on best
I
practices.
don't see why you couldn't, find a way to do that if that was necessary. Your best bet is to just first say, we'd like to see these changes and see if they voluntarily, and then if you feel very strongly about it, we can do a legal analysis of which power it would be appropriate to impose that if that was what we wished.
Right. So I think we do have a shared agreement from the numbers, right? About 20, so over a dozen are departing from the, have you kept up with the numbers, Mr. Shura?
No, I haven't seen any numbers lately, but we should be receiving those DNs. I know the last few years there was quite a few. I never seen anything like it. My experience as an officer, there'd be a few people making their retirement when they're 25 plus years or finishing their drop. But the majority of them were resigning and going to other agencies, presumably.
And, and I just want to comment, if we treated the CDP as a company, I like to make this analogy, and we see people leaving, and regardless of the reason, let's just look at the people leaving. That also suggests that people that are staying may have the same concerns, but they haven't reached the point of leaving, right, for whatever reason. So this is something that has to be solved deeply and systemically. We can maybe banter around at how many officers are necessary, because I think just because we're losing officers, we have to also assess, do we have enough operational ability? But that is not just the number of people, it is the morale of the officers, their training, and other deeper kind of issues. So I think that it's worth it. The project I was going to suggest is that if outreach can help us, our outreach is not just to the community, it is also to the police community and the police associations. I might recommend that we can, in the interim, in addition, conduct some exit interviews directly, talk to these officers who are leaving and really get to the heart of the issue, because we all want to solve this issue, because if the CDP is not at full operational capacity, that is a detriment to the community and also a danger probably to the officers. So I don't know what I need to do to make that suggestion. I can just speak to the outreach committee on that. I know that, sometimes you get accurate or overly accurate information for someone that has left, but maybe, and I know this is very political because people have views because it's the police, but we treat it as a business situation. We do have not fully satisfied workers, I would say. So I'd like to assess that from, let's just be neutral about it and assess that from kind of a workforce perspective. So I will, if it's okay, I will just go ahead and try to reach out to our outreach committee and see what we can do. And we can find some ways, just questions. I felt the questions, to my opinion, were a little bit lacking. And a dozen questions. I don't know if that's standard for an exit interview. So, and I'm happy to communicate with Commander Carney on other ways that we can get this information. So that is what we have for the records request. Before Ryan does his flowchart presentation, are there any comments? No? Okay, we can move on. Ryan, do you want to do your presentation now, or do you want, we can just briefly talk about the appeal from the community member, and then you can have the rest of the time? How much time do you think you'll need? We are a little behind
I am
schedule.
probably gonna need every ounce of time you can give me.
So why don't we just talk briefly, go back to what Mr. Goodrich said, and I don't want to belabor this. There was a CPRB meeting today. On the agenda was the departure of Safety Director Howard on a case from Mr. Antoine Tolbert, who has, I believe, appealed to us. When did he appeal, Jason?
He did appeal. It's within the last several weeks. So he appealed in January. However, we have not accepted it because of due process yet.
Mhm.
So I won't do a pre-assessment until CPRB finalizes its business. So the first thing I did was ask CPRB, have you concluded your due process on this case? And their answer was that it's back on their agenda for today.
Mhm.
So now we can see what their minutes say about this and decide if it's ready for us to come forward. So it will now get a case number. It will be
So yes,
from
so
us, and we'll begin the assessment.
I attended the meeting, and Mr. Goodrich, and I would encourage our community members that are interested in this to stream. It's the first, basically, I think 30 to 45 minutes of the CPRB meeting this morning. I was present to just read the sections in 115.4 and to simply say that CPRB has the authority to assert their finding over the police, the safety director and the chief. There was, just to give a brief summary of what happened, and then I agree with Mr. Goodrich that this is not a manual issue. This is a law issue. It has been, right, 115.4 has also been in place since the same time as, because it's part of issue 24, the changes, right? Or
so they would have been in November of 2021, as soon as the election results were certified. This became an official part of the charter. So they could have started exercising the overturning of chief's discipline and safety director's discipline at that point. So I can tell, I pulled the page from their manual that they're referring to. If you'd like to hear it, it's very interesting that they keep falling back on this, because the manual specifically says that the CPRB manual must be in line with the charter here. So, and it says in their manual, let's save the picture of it. Here we go. It's in there. It's on their first page. So it does say, I can see how it's confusing because it isn't worded very well, but it says, in addition to the Cleveland Charter, this operating manual contains all of the rules, procedures, processes, and general operations of the CPRB. So remember, it says in addition to the charter, right? So you're supplementing the charter with this. If rules, procedures, processes, or operations codified elsewhere or functionally operational elsewhere and potentially, apparently, or actually conflict with the provisions of this manual, the provisions of this manual control. Now, it's important to remember there that
yes, you can say it controls, but that's everything except for the charter. I think that's very clear that this is in addition to the charter. The next sentence in this is that all provisions of this operating manual must be considered in a manner consistent with the charter of the city of Cleveland. So I don't know how much more clear you can get, and I don't understand how the law department interprets this as a manual is more powerful than the charter. So that is what it says. That's from their own manual. They didn't even read this today or look at it. They took it verbatim from council that what they're saying is truthful and honest and a legal opinion. So
Thank you. So, and for that, and it was just a brief overview. They said that they I think made a resolution to go back to law to get interpretation of this. The other thing that troubled me is that a few of the members stated that they need to have more recollection of the case and they needed more information. And that troubles me because it was literally on the agenda to assess the departure. So part of due process is that there has to be timeliness in how, and I believe Mr. Howard's, Director Howard's, it was a year after, right? The departure occurred, or about a year. So this is a very long time that we have had a citizen try to proceed in his pursuit of police accountability. And I do want to note that according to the charter, we as the commission have the authority at any point in the decision-making process to open this case as a possible one. So Mr. Goodrick and I can have further discussion about this, because in our rules, we have to, once an appeal is given to us, we have to give an assessment within 14 days. And this, combined with the fact that the chief is now saying that these records these case files will take 60 days to give to us. I don't like that there are so many time barriers to resolving this issue. So we can have further discussion about that. So that is an update. And I encourage everyone to stay connected with CPRB on this, and they can watch the meeting today. Mr. Walker, unless there's questions, the floor is all yours. And please let me know if you need more time and we can extend for a little bit, but we are still basically on schedule. You actually have more time. So to give a background, we have been engaged in a month-long project through this committee to try to simplify via diagrams and flowcharts the very complicated disciplinary process that the city engages in. I did notice, and I think our media members like Signal, they attempted to map out, and it's a good resource to get a foundational understanding, a description of the various components of the system. But I'm sure Mr. Walker is going to give us much higher detail. Mr. Walker, if you can give us, just a bird's eye view of this, because I'm sure these are just drafts, these are not finalized yet, but the goal is to simplify and clarify the disciplinary process, especially from a community standpoint, such that community members can understand our police system and the discipline process better.
And which file is this you're starting with, Ryan?
So this is so I'm starting with this. This is an overview of the externally discovered misconduct. Basically, this means this is from citizens' complaints. That's what we mean when we say externally discovered misconduct. So this is the way the system currently is. Now, this is not in line with the charter, and I'm going to have a couple of quick clarifications of putting this out there. One is there are inevitably going to be some typos in this because the software that we use does not have a spell check. I apologize, and I try as hard as I try. Oh, please, God.
So help me God.
Okay.
And I do want to note that these documents in their draft form are available on the meeting link.
So
How do we access this?
So that if you go to the CPC's calendar and you click on tonight's meeting, I have all these documents posted on the landing page when you click it. So if you go to the clecpc.org
and you from the drop-down menus, you find our calendar. When you click tonight's accountability meeting, you should go to a landing page that has all of these documents.
So, yeah, this is, let me see if I can zoom in a bit more.
Everybody has this in there. So Ryan, why don't you just read?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and,
And Ryan does have tend to fight with technology. So.
yes, no, it fights with me. I've not started a single fight with it.
Ryan, can you tell us
Yeah,
the
I'll
various types of the various
So-
charts? One is for the externally
so
received.
there's presently there are seven charts, and they are, it's not better. There are currently 7 charts. There is externally discovered misconduct, the way it is now. There's externally discovered misconduct, how it should be under section 115. There is automobile accident reports. There is internally discovered misconduct. There is the due process hearing. There's the inspector general's process, and and finally there is the grievance procedure. Those are the 7 documents we're looking for. These are very. This took longer than I expected, and these charts might not look as complicated as they are because this information was not stored in any one particular place. It was stored in the. This comes through a variety of different documents, manuals, GPOs. Looking at how cases, sort of just talking to people and seeing how these cases are handled. And I'm going to go ahead and give an honest disclaimer here: is this might not be 100% accurate. It is as accurate as I could find it. I've got contradictory information from different people. I was told by different people who work for the city completely different things on how this works. So this is what I've been able to glean from that. So, and if one of the stuff is wrong, I would, if something's wrong, it wasn't because I made it up. It was because I had competing information, and I kind of like, well, this seems to be how it's done, and I kind of did it like that. And I try to mention that as we go through, if I could get this thing to just.
We don't need. I don't think we need. Because
All right.
these documents are available. I would.
Online. Okay, I'll
online,
stop.
so-
All right. So
Why don't you walk through?
Yeah, so this is
the OPS process,
the
right?
OPS process. This is when it's a civilian complaint. So the color reds or the cylindrical or the rounded edge buttons indicate that it is a start or finish of a process. The little squiggly line, these guys, that's a document. Diamonds are a decision point. Squares are processes or sub-processes. The home base thing means it goes somewhere else. It goes to another document, or it goes to somewhere else on the page. It goes to another document, it's green. It goes to another page, it's gray. And these little weird, these little weird shapes here are, yeah. Oh yeah, they are. That's roughly how much time there is, how much time this process is supposed to take. Now, that is not listed everywhere. Only 2 processes actually have it specified how much time they're supposed to take, or at least officially in their documents. So, start 1: a complaint is received. This comes from the OPS manual, and it has to be done within 24 hours. A complaint form is generated /received, and a contact number is generated. This process takes 24 hours. So, first decision: is this an administrative? Is there a case for administrative dismissal? If it is, an administrative dismissal form is generated and sent to the complainant. Now, you can't just administratively dismiss things for no reason. There's a set number of reasons why you're allowed to do that. One is the officer is a non-CDP employee, in which case OPS notifies the relevant agency of the complaint. If the officer cannot be identified, like say the person's not able to sort of say which officer it is, the complaint was just issuing a traffic ticket or parking ticket, barring other alleged misconduct. The complaint is the result of a workload delay, meaning one of the things is one of the most common charges is lack of service, where you didn't where the complainants feel that the officer did not assist them or address their needs. But sometimes, it's just the officer couldn't get to that because they were doing something else. The incident involves off-duty civil conduct, meaning that it was not connected to the officer's employment with the CEP. So, but that's for those. And so then are the allegations potentially criminal? If the answer is yes, then the policy states that it must then go to internal affairs, and the OPS will resume its investigation when internal affairs is done. However, the two now generally proceed simultaneously with each other, just for the sake of time. But their manual says that the OPS is supposed to halt its investigation when it receives, if it realizes a criminal allegation, and forward it to the internal affairs. Now it's just, but they still just both now investigate simultaneously.
And Ryan, can you clarify? That is why we have two externally discovered flow charts, because one of them is the way 115.5 says you're supposed to do it. And to our previous point, the other is the way they're currently doing it under their old manual before 115.5. So we had to make two different charts because they're still using the old system as opposed to 115. So right now, I believe we're going off the old one, right, Ryan? This is the
Yes, this is the old system. Yes, this is how this is how they're currently doing it.
Yes.
And so there's just, all right. And so if it's a no, the case is assigned to an investigator. And at this point, the complainant is notified that a case has been assigned. And then, of course, OPS conducts its investigation. For simple cases, that should take 45 days. For more complex cases, should take 75 days.
What is but that has not been happening? There was a monitor report about this?
So that's why it was important to establish times on this, so that we could see when we're off the time chart. So this is what the documentation currently says that it's supposed to be. However, you are correct. A lot of times they do not meet these milestones. Not all the time, but especially for the complex investigations.
And so now I'm going to hop to the next page. So OPS conducts its investigation. That was from the former page. And so the investigative summary report is produced. The complaint is also notified that the investigation is complete. And then OPS provides CPRB access to case files. The CPRB has a hearing. There's no set time frame with that. OPS provides CPRB within 15 days. So then the OPS investigator presents the report to the CPRB hearing, and the CPRB will then adjudicate the case.
Okay.
All right. So
I want to note that the complainant should be notified at every stage.
Every stage. Anytime there's a decision or sort of a collection of documents rendered, the complainant should be notified. Sorry. All right. So CPRB adjudicates the case from last page. The CPRB then makes a decision. It has four options: sustained, exonerated, unfounded, or insufficient evidence. The last three is while they are materially different, it effectively results in the case being dismissed, at which point notification is sent to the complainant and subject personnel. However, if it was a sustained motion, the CPRB recommends discipline, specifying violations and group level. The CPRB findings letter is sent to the chief. He's supposed to vet within 14 days of the decision, and also then notification again is also sent to the complainant and subject personnel. There's a due process hearing, which you will see in another slide. And then the chief or safety director make the decision make discipline decision within 26 to 90 days. It's with the CPRB, as you'll see I'll go into more detail with the due process hearing. CPRB cases are treated differently than internally discovered cases. And this whole process outlined on this page takes between 52 and 116 days to complete.
How long it says CPRB, how long does it have from is there a timeline given from the end of the investigation by OPS to when they have to take the case and adjudicate it?
No, there's no time frame for that. At least
Okay.
that's not one that's specified.
Okay. Are there any considerations in arbitration with these timelines? With are they bound to the union
Well,
standards?
we'll get to our, yes, the arbitration has a much more delineated timeline. But that'll be the last one we do. 'Cause
Right,
that's like,
but today we, there was something that one of the CPRB members said that they asked, what is the requirement? So that was the requirement. How much time does the complainant have to report the incident from the time of the incident with the officer? I believe it was 6 months, is that it was said today. They have a limited time that they can report it. That's what apparently they claimed. They were arguing about that.
I would have to check. So you're talking about,
When the incident occurs to when a person.
so there
can
is,
make
there
a
is
complaint.
something in the union contracts that deals with time, that when the division is made aware of an investigation or a complaint, right? So I think there's a lot of dispute over how those timelines affect the outcome and what that means for if it goes to arbitration or grievance. And we could do a deeper dive into that specific provision in the future about what does it mean, how is time affecting outcomes, because we have a lot of discipline data and Ryan's already dove into that a little bit. There have been cases where they've cited time as a reason why they can only do a letter in an officer's file and no discipline. And then there's been other times where it seems like the time passage didn't matter. So I think it's inconsistently applied and we don't actually know with any definitive answer what that means.
okay, so from the last page, the OPS conducts its, here we go. So the CPRB sends us the due process hearing. And so the chief or safety director make the discipline decision. So now next page. So, and again, from the last page, chief or safety director makes a decision from last page. I keep repeating myself, I apologize. And there's also notice of hearing outcome sent to the CPRB within 10 days. Did the SD or chief depart? No, then discipline is imposed. And a complaint and the subject officer are notified. If the SD or chief did depart, it goes to, if it was yes, was the departure from the safety director or the chief? If it was from the safety director, will some discipline still be imposed? If no, then case is dismissed. And if this should be yes. That's my typo. I realize that now. Then no. If not, then yes, some discipline is imposed, and in that case, that both the complainant and the subject officer are notified. If it was the chief, that's when they have to decide: does the safety director appeal to does the CPRB appeal to the safety director? No, some discipline still imposed. Yes, discipline imposed. It goes to this is kind of complicated. I'm sorry, I'm not articulating it better than just reading it, but basically is, so if it's what the CPRB was deciding on, if it comes back to them from the chief, it has to go, they then have to appeal to the safety director, and that's its own separate process. But if it's coming from the safety director, that's like the final decision from this this process. So if the chief, so if the CPRB appeals the safety director to override the chief at the next CPRB meeting, subject up to 31 days, a letter is sent to the safety director. The safety director makes a final decision. Again, the safety director letter was sent to the CPRB. Does the safety director agree with the chief? Yes. Then will there still some discipline be imposed? Yes. But basically, you all end up with this thing: is the decision appealed by the officer? If not, it's the end of the process. If it's yes, it goes to the grievance procedure. So that's sort of where all the if and or positions are. Because there's kind of a lot to go with this. So, first, if it's the safety, so basically the CPRB always has to send their stuff to the chief first, and no matter what the group level is, it always has to go to the chief first. And then once, if he departs and says, no, I disagree with this, it's sent back to the CPRB. Then the CPRB can try to have the safety director override the chief, then they appeal to the safety director. And so what ends up happening is you'll see this in how this works in the internal due process, is that it makes the procedure a bit kookier if it's a group 3 level offense. So we'll get there. So that's kind of, so it has this sort of double layered process, which is why this kind of looks kind of convoluted, was because it's just, I didn't want to have a lot of arrows crossing each other. So this is kind of how I laid it out. And that is so if this basically is, this process takes at least 10 to 41 days. It usually takes much longer. If the CPRB's decision is not departed from and the minimum length of time is employed from start to finish, this would process to take no fewer than 133 days. Best possible time frame. So that's how it works under that. Let's go now to how it's supposed to look under it. So it's not too different. There are some important distinctions. So you have the complaint is received, complaint form generated, goes to the same possibility of administrative dismissal. If the allegation, this is where the first change is. If the allegations are criminal, they simply inform internal affairs about it, and they kind of go from there. If they think it might be, they'll let that be internal affairs. Good.
Could we maybe ask Mr. Churro, how is that decided? What is the criminal kind of line? I know it's, how do you decide? Do you ever also get complaints through IA that they're of a so?
When I was in IA, most of the time, if OPS had any kind of doubt, if it wasn't just administrative, if it was criminal, they would refer the case to myself for review, and then I would decide whether it was or not. Usually, as far as other cases coming to us, yeah, if it wasn't criminal, they would be referred to OPS.
Okay, so it's a reflexive system.
Yeah, and at that time, OPS, if we took a criminal investigation, I don't believe that they did any kind of follow-up after that. We would handle the whole thing and put the officer up on charges if that was necessary.
Yeah,
handle the whole thing at that point.
Yeah, that is what they are. That is what their current policy officially says now. But what they've started to do is just do them simultaneously out of because it was sort of not involving so they've decided to. That is what the rule now presently says, or at least this is what the old rules said.
The charter mandates that they do it regardless of if it's being criminally investigated.
Yeah,
so 115.5 is very clear that they cannot absolve themselves of the duty to investigate simultaneously, even if it's criminal.
So if allegations are criminal, inform IA, but then of course then you keep going. Cases
before you carry on, it's just important to point out here that this is an area we need to note with accountability, is that what is their standard when they send it to IA? Because it's evident in this case we just heard today that it may have been a criminal violation under Cleveland Municipal Code for violation of civil rights. And it's our understanding that it was never presented as a case to IA or looked at from that lens. So whose responsibility is that? If OPS received this complaint, do they have the correct training to identify when there are some things that they're not looking for that may be criminal? So this is a place where we should make a note that we have to see what the standard for OPS is for evaluating if there's criminality, and then what record do they keep of the cases that they sent to IA. So, because as I said, I think there's some concern there that this particular case may have had criminal investigatory potential, and it was never investigated from a criminal standpoint. There is no record of this Mr. Tolbert's case ever being assessed by IA from that level.
Maybe we can reach out to Mr. Violin, and maybe he and both and I guess Administrator Perez, and get their just, assessment about I mean, I'm sure it's not a clear line, but that if there's any doubt, right, you're saying, Mr. Chair, generally, if there was any doubt, it would come to the IA commander to decide. Right. So, and what is and I think in Mr. Cholbert's case, or any case that would have had criminal kind of investigative potential, is that CPRB did sustain the maximum 2 Group 3 violations. There were some Group 2, maximum with 10 minimum days each of suspension to termination. But if it is in the wrong investigatory path, the potential outcome there's a barrier, right, to what can be imposed, and so that is why this is really important. That so we've not received any clarification as to why was it ever even, who was the IA commander at that point? Was it MC at that point? It was.
It may have been, I'd have to look at the date, but it
22.
would either have been Mr. Bakeman, or it would have been the interim person who was appointed, which might have been Captain Simon, who was put over there interim during this time period. But again, it may not be their fault. If the investigators didn't catch it, right, or think that this could be criminal, they wouldn't have sent it to IA. But what was confirmed is there was no record of an IA case being started. So if a complaint comes into to OPS, do they have a checklist of what's criminal and when it should go over, down to the level of misdemeanors in the city of Cleveland, right? Because this would have been a misdemeanor 1 offense that they just didn't even maybe think of sending over, because violation of civil rights wasn't on their radar, or they're not trained in what the probable cause for that is to recognize it, right? So I think there is an issue with that, because it was confirmed that there was never a case opened by A. So where was the breakdown? We don't know.
So I think that would be important, in addition to, addressing Mr. Tolbert's appeal, that we understand that his pathway may suggest other improvements in the system, and it may just be a discussion of these things. So we don't have any information even from OPS how this happened?
No.
Okay.
One thing that, IA might not always investigate misdemeanors that occur in the city of Cleveland. They don't investigate operating, under the influence or anything like that. The inspections unit comes out and just monitors the regular officers and regular supervisors to ensure that they're doing the proper investigation. So that might be something that just happened here.
I don't know.
Well, let's not work, I love all the insight as to the possibilities, but we need to find out what happened. So Ryan, if you can finish out, I would propose if you can finish out the ideal process for CPC, we can move to extend by 10 minutes, if that's okay, for public comment. Mr. Chura, you're a man of the people, to let the people speak. Is that okay?
I'm good.
Okay, aye. So, Mr. Walker, if you can finish in the next probably 5 minutes, that would be great.
Okay, I'll try to finish this one.
And you only need to go over what's changed.
Yeah, and so this sort of internal stuff regarding the CPRB and OPS investigation process is the same. Here's where it starts to get a little bit different. So the sort of the CPRB decision is not similar. The CPRB recommends discipline, specifying and addressing group level. The CPRB finds a finding letter sent to the chief after. And so, however, the different thing is that now is notification sent to the complainant and the subject personnel, and the complainant must be informed that they can appeal the decision to the CPC if it's exonerated, unfounded, or insufficient evidence that they can appeal it. Then it goes back to the due process thing, and then the chief and safety director make the discipline decision. And this is, of course, where it's most different. So the SD or the chief make a decision Notice of hearing outcome is sent to CPRB within 10 days. Did the SD or chief depart? No. Discipline imposed? Yes, they did. Did the CPR agree with the chief or safety director? If yes, and then of course if some go that, and if no, the CPRB compels the chief to impose discipline. And that's it. And is the decision appealed by the officer? Yes, it goes to grievance procedure. Does the CPC review the case? If yes, then it goes to CPC.
You may want to make a little "we are here"
Yeah, yeah,
arrow.
yeah. We're sort of CPC will.
Or no, where we are in this
Yeah.
particular appeal.
Yeah, that's
right.
that's where we sort of
So-
would come in. So those are what's changed with that. So that's those two. That's the external. The internal one is a much simpler looking chart, but it's a much more complicated process.
So we'll look forward to that
Yeah.
part of the presentation next time. If you want to give some closing remarks about what you discovered, I think you alluded to the fact that there were contradictions or paradoxes that you faced. And what would you propose? I mean, are they incompatible, or is it just, how things go, how things are enacted within a culture, or how as compared to, is it like something that we need to add to manuals, or what is missing?
So there's the two biggest problems that I ran into, and what was the two most frustrating aspects of this is how incredibly opaque this system is. It's hard for someone to if you're just looking through the sort of manuals and documents and those sorts of things, it's really hard for someone to sort of piece together what's going to happen, because things are often described in far vaguer terms than can be, or than they could be would actually use. And because a lot of the processes are more formalized now than they were before the consent decree. There's still a lot of informality in the process, and there is just a ton of I keep blanking on the word for it. There's a ton of discretion that is had, and there's a lot of people who really were tasked with doing this. I was told a couple times, like, oh, that'd be a really good thing to have to kind of know how all this stuff works out, how it all kind of gets together, and because no one's ever done it before. And so often you have the sort of one hand isn't talking to the other hand. They don't know what they're doing, and so you kind of are just setting up into this morass of when you send it to the safety directors, prep team. That's an opaque process. How when you send things back and forth between them, it's kind of
So to give you an example of what Ryan's talking about, Ryan Carney runs case prep for the chief. There's a separate staff that does case prep for the safety director. And if you ask Commander Carney, how do they do case prep over at the safety director side? The answer is, I don't know. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to identify here is, why do you have two different case preparation units and operating independently of each other, and not one doesn't know what the other one's doing or how they operate? So because this system has never been mapped before, you have a unique opportunity now to bring these players into a room and deconflict this process, because obviously there's a lot of conflict in this of who's in charge at what specific time, who communicates with who when, and how do we make sure that we can coordinate discipline between all of these different entities without stepping on each other's toes, and with a clear doctrine to follow instead of guessing or making up interpretations depending on who's in that office. So this is a groundbreaking piece of work. And the next step to this would be getting everyone in a room and arguing on what needs to change here to make this process more efficient, more transparent, and more clear from start to finish, no matter where it comes in.
So thank you for the presentation. I would hope that maybe because the public, is an educational component for them, I would love to get a meeting where all the parties are here, Fyland, Carney, everything, and we can just hash it out like we do in the Rules Committee. And of course, Ms. Church can tell us how it used to go in the good old days. But this is very, very important. And, and it's not in any way, you talk about discretion, elimination of discretion is not trying to control situations, but it's a recognition of our humanity in some ways. And it's a great way to maintain consistency in processes. So thank you, Ryan, so much for endeavoring on this, getting us at least halfway up the hill right now, or at least have momentum. Mr. Chair, do you have any comments? We'll
Yeah,
look forward to.
I think before we post this on the website, we have to get rid of all the little discrepancies, and especially the one thing where it was no and should have been yes.
Yeah.
So I think we have to give them data.
Or just,
Yeah,
again,
Yeah,
data,
it's not
correct it.
official, it's just as a draft.
Can we
on the
write
website.
draft?
Yeah, but I don't
on
wanna
it,
see
so-
two things out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Let's just put
We'll-
one correct
we'll
one
make
out.
sure,
right.
yeah, but it would have been
So-
hard for the public tonight to follow
No,
along.
no, it's
watch
fine,
it
it's fine for
without
tonight,
having
I'm
Right.
with you on that, but just, we'll
Right.
clean it up a
So
little bit.
Now, we're opening to public comment, and lemon bar, you must take another lemon bar when you come to public comment. And for people that don't come to our meetings, we have potential lemon bars and other desserts made by this set of lemon bars, which are exquisite, was made by community member Gabe Flores. So we want to thank him. It was been partaken of and enjoyed in 2 meetings already. But please, with or without baked goods, we invite you to our meetings, and certainly for just the prospect of hearing your opinions, we welcome you.
All right, if making public comments will have a square of the bar, I could have taken the whole plate already, whatever remaining on the plate. Number one issue here is, for this kind of complicated process, now we know it's definitely complicated, not only opaque, I will consider it as a black box operation, worse than being opaque. So if the high rank officers doing this job, they do not even know how this actually goes, and how would all those officers understand how this system they should navigate? Does that mean maybe we should have a course in the academy to teach our future officers how to go through this particular system, no matter which set is later the one used in the actual reality? Right now, we know we have a two. One is what the charter requires the system to be, but one is currently how it actually goes. So it doesn't matter which one goes. We probably need to have a class in the academy to teach officers, the future officers, how to go through the navigations. That's one comment. Secondly, today even these things are posted, but I think the name has to indicate which one is which one is the currently used, which one is the charter compliant version. That will help the audience right now watching online or next time to understand, to follow that. But I do have to admire our researcher, Ryan, and our director, Jason here, and their comments are their supplemental comments are actually on par to help people to understand. This is the reason why the police practice has a very negative culture internally instilled in them for a long, long time. Because lots of the things they do, they don't even have a unified rules to go. Now, internal affairs right now is one. Their regular rules, they follow the GPO or GOP? GPO, yeah, okay, I got it right. GPO, that's another one. Because I'm in one of the work groups, we have to read all these things they have to go through. Believe me, I believe all the officers, even in their first year of being in the field, they will not really remember everything themselves and understand all of them. And the confusing part is, even I clocked out, I'm still on duty. Simple thing like that. So I believe the commission really has a lot of things to tackle. And this is the reason why I have been saying the same thing I have been saying in the whole past year. We do not have enough commissioner appointed to this commission with critical thinking, analytical mind. Because these are the things, if you don't have this kind of a mentality and skills, you go by nonprofit background, the skills you build from your nonprofit background, you cannot rework these things through because you will be totally overwhelmed, totally frustrated, and because there's nothing you can compromise even more than these already being super compromised situations. So I hope all the commissioners right now, because of the change of the leadership, some of the committees do need new members in. I hope other commissioners, you better think about it. What committee you should be in? If you are not really equipped with these kind of skills, maybe you should think about strengthen yourself with these skills and come to join the committee. Basically, the rules committee and accountability committee, these two are actually the backbone of the commission. All other committees, they're important. I'm not saying they are not, but their job to really help is more on the community side instead of police side of it. The police commission is actually, we have to do lots of work with the police. Yes, we do need to educate our community members, but if we do not change. If we do not change these conflicting rules, these opaque black box operations, we will not really get the job done. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have another public comment?
Hello?
You can try it, but I don't.
Hello, my name's Rosie Palfy. I wanted to thank Chair Commissioner Wong for her leadership. And what I want to address my comments about is a story that Idea Stream Matthew Richmond wrote today regarding the proposed choice of the Commission's new executive director. When Justin Bibb ran for mayor, he had no political experience. He embraced his status as an outsider and ran as the change candidate. His motto was "Cleveland can't wait." He ran a brilliant campaign. He courageously stood his ground and was the only one of 7 candidates who supported issue 24. He promised to revolutionize the way City Hall operated and do away with cumbersome government bureaucracy. In a December 2022 story by Signal Cleveland reporter Nick Castell, Mayor Bibb made the following statement, quote, "I view my role as mayor truly as the chief sales officer for the city," end quote. He ran on a public safety platform and promised sweeping changes in police reform. He said he envisioned the new Cleveland Community Police Commission to be a model for national police reform. When 63% of voters cast their ballots for Justin Bibb, they thought they were buying a Cadillac Escalade. The voters empowered Mayor Bibb with the ability to appoint 10 of 13 new commissioners. Now they've slowly realized that instead of buying a Cadillac Escalade, they bought a lemon. They have a Ford Pinto. Why? Because he refuses to appoint the candidate that the majority of commissioners selected last June to lead the commission. By then, Jason Goodrick had gone through a rigorous 6-year audition process. Mayor Bibb waited 5 weeks to announce he would not accept their recommendation. He blamed Mr. Goodrick for infighting that started long before he was hired in 2017. The first and second monitoring team reports document the dysfunction of the earlier versions of the commission. The new commission's challenges are due largely to the city's lack of support. They've waited months to provide them with the disciplinary documents they've requested. Mayor Bibb is not slow walking police reform. He's flagrantly blocking it. When Citizens for a Safer Cleveland campaigned for the charter amendment, not a single resident called for a change to the commission's leadership and staff. They voted to make the commission permanent because they saw the value with the CPC's impressive work done by Mr. Goodrick and his very capable staff. Voters overwhelmingly voted to approve the charter amendment, as well as to make Justin Bibb their new mayor. That was due in part to Mr. Goodrick's leadership. I happen to think that Mayor Bibb does owe Jason Goodrick a debt of gratitude, because I think he did play a part in his being elected. I've been working in the trenches with Mr. Goodrick, fighting for constitutional policing for individuals experiencing a behavioral health crisis for the last 6 years. Jason has my full faith and confidence. To the commissioners themselves, you will be setting a dangerous precedent if you don't fight to back the majority's vote, even if you did not support it. If the police union voted for something, they wouldn't back down and rescind their vote because the mayor didn't want to enact it. The reality is the city doesn't want the commission to succeed. That's why they haven't appointed Jason. Some commissioners have 2-year terms that will end in December. If you hire a new executive director, you will spend the majority of the rest of your remaining time waiting for a new director to learn how to do their job. Ask yourselves what you want your legacy to be. Sorry. Are you going to be fighters, or are you going to be quitters? Thank you. And just one more quick thing. The one fighter that we do have here, Commissioner Wong, and I don't agree on everything, but she has led the charge to get an attorney to give an opinion about the what is that called? The conflict of interest. Okay, and I mean, you know, can you blame Jason because the minority of the commission couldn't even put together a press release to announce their vote? I mean, come on. So I want to thank you and recognize your leadership for that. So thank you.
Okay, take a lemon bar. Everybody take a lemon bar. Thank you so much. I will say, you know, the fight, and Jason has said this to me, I will go on record that he knows that the fight for establishing independence goes beyond him or any commissioner here, and the conflict of interests that are frankly piling up show the need for continual resistance against. We can collaborate, but we cannot capitulate, and we need to. But to do that, we need to work together as a commission. There are obviously woulda, shoulda, coulda with the charter, but from my just regular person's view of it, there's enough there that if we cohesively work together, we can actually deliver independence and rigorous civilian oversight to Cleveland, which a landslide of voters voted for. And this is not even about that. This is just about reality, that this Cleveland is the first, I think, major city to have a second consent decree in its police forces. We cannot ask for a third. So thank you so much for engaging with us and participating. Please stay attentive, not just when it comes to a head. And I think it's a blessing that we have not had any so-called high-profile issues. So I thank the police officers for their continued work in maintaining that kind of outcome. And I thank the citizens for continuing to keep everybody accountable. So our next meeting, we might be a little bit ad hoc because there are some things coming out of the work groups, but will be scheduled when it is.
Well, we're on the second
Tuesday of next month. Thank you so much. And our next full commission meeting is the 28th of February. Are we having it here?
It's here. That's correct.
It's here. Thank you so much. Take care.
And we are